Final Fantasy VII was finished. It instantly became my favourite game of all time. It was so good, I had to buy a second copy of the game. Well, not because I was bougie, because somebody took a pen to disc 1 and absolutely ruined it. And that was the original artwork one. I had to get a platinum version of the game later on. But the benefit of getting this Final Fantasy VII Platinum version was that it came with the opening video of Final Fantasy VIII. I put in that little demo and I watched the first shot of the beach. I was like, okay, what are we expecting here? And then the music kicked in. The orchestral, the operatic singing, oh my word. I had no idea what was going on, but my jaw dropped. I was, first of all, shocked. Where's Cloud? Where is he? Where's Barrett? Where's Tifa? Where's Aerith? Oh, well, no, she's in the water. We know where she is. But where's everyone else? Now, at the time, I didn't realise that every time you have a Final Fantasy, it's a whole new world. I had no idea. Remember, I was coming in at this, and Final Fantasy VII as my first game. So I had no ideas of the one before. Now, after the success of 7, you thought they would have just made a 7-2, or keep it in the same world. But for what some people didn't know, well, I didn't know, was that Final Fantasy VIII was already in development during FF7's translation period here in the West. And this kind of reminded me of when the West got Pokemon Red and Blue, because we were all so excited about it, like, yay, look at this game. But Gold and Silver just hit in Japan, so we were way behind the 8 ball. Now, as I said, the developers could have made a safe game, but they didn't. And they decided to make what sometimes is referred to as the Black Sheep. It definitely stands out, don't get me wrong. Its plot, its characters, mechanics, and that minigame. No, too early. Stop that. But today, we are going to be talking about that Black Sheep, Final Fantasy VIII, the middle game in the PlayStation trilogy. One which had the biggest uphill battle I've ever seen in gaming. It was a battle which a lot of people thought it had no chance to do, but it gave it its best shot. I've completed this game many times, and I know a lot of other people have, and there have been a lot of other discussions about the lore and about how the game mechanics work, and is this actually a good game? So I'm going to do my own little deep dive, and I want you to come join with me. Now, I should say, if you are liking this, please give a comment, like, and subscribe. It really helps get the channel out there. Right, let's jump in, shall we? Now, as I said, the main thing going against it was that you were going against Final Fantasy VII. And this is Final Fantasy VIII. How are you going to topple one of the best, if not the best game of all time? In my opinion, it is. And if it's not, shut up. Like, there's so much to talk about. Like, where do we start? So, as I said earlier, when I first put that disc in and watched the beach scene and it kicked off, my jaw dropped. Like, I wasn't lying. That opening sequence was absolutely beautiful. Like, Square showed once again they were the king of FMVs. And this opening FMV set the game in motion. Like, we basically got to see some of the characters, we got to see the bad guy in a deer, we got to see Renoa, but it also then led to the epic sword fight between our antagonist and our protagonist, Squall and Cypher, and it adds events that was going to be coming our way. It was absolutely incredible. Like, FF7 did look good, don't get me wrong, but when you look back at it now, those FMVs were very stiff. Like, look at the way Barrett walks. Like, you could add like the tuba noise in Family Guy. But Final Fantasy VIII's models look so fluid, and I suppose it really helped that they used motion capture to do this. And even the characters' models in-game got an overall redesign. Gone with the Lego people from Final Fantasy VII to realistic models to help the characters feel more lifelike. And I think, although it was a bit of a shock, I think this is probably the best idea because it helps the characters feel more grounded in the environments that they were, unlike Final Fantasy VII, where you just had these really gorgeous pre-rendered backgrounds with just these Lego people sitting there, whereas Final Fantasy VIII kind of makes sense and they really do fit in with the sense of scale. having these realistic models also help convey situations to the story like that. A real emotion can come out. And going back to Final Fantasy VII, you couldn't really convey the emotion because these are people without noses or mouths. So how'd you do that? But in Final Fantasy VIII, you could really tell by their body movements, although there wasn't the facial expressions, but you can really tell the emotion that was going on between them. Additionally, the character models were also so good, they were used in battle as well as out. Again, unlike 7, which had Lego people, and then the realistic models. The game was such a huge step up graphically when you consider the short gap between Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy VIII. At the time, it set the standard for how good games can look. The dance scene was absolutely beautiful and mesmerizing as well. Oh, that was the other video that was on that disc as well, before anyone shouts at me in the UK. Yeah, that was there, I know. Now, graphics today, they do look dated. Of course they look dated, I'm not silly, but at the time they were really good. But there's always one scene when I look at it now which makes me laugh, which is where Renoa says to Squall at the dance, "But you're the prettiest guy in here." This just kind of reminds me now of this. Pre-rendered backgrounds were used again like in Final Fantasy VII, and again they work so well. The backgrounds look so beautiful and they express so much. Again, they could have gone to 3D, but I don't think they should have done that, and sticking with these pre-rendered backgrounds was definitely the best idea. As I said with Final Fantasy VII's pre-rendered backgrounds, they were used in such a way that you could actually use the FMVs and merge them into it or merge them out of it. It was very clever. Now, this game itself, should be noted, it's huge. Remember Final Fantasy VII had 3 discs and we all lost our mind? Yeah, this thing has 4. I know 9 did as well, but 4 discs. Like, we knew we were in for a good time with how many discs we were getting. Could you imagine this is on the N64? It'd cripple Nintendo. The console would just blow up, wouldn't have a clue. And yes, like Final Fantasy VII, there was a TV advert for Final Fantasy VIII. And did it convey what it was meant to be doing? No! Here it is.
Coming this fall, the most anticipated action-adventure of the year. A story of one man's struggle to save mankind from extermination and his quest to win the heart of the woman he loves. An epic so stunning your emotions will stir, your heart will race, and your thumbs will be really sore. Final Fantasy VIII coming to a home theater near you. PlayStation.
Absolutely farcical. It's ridiculous. Well, they're probably thinking Final Fantasy VII won't work, so who cares if we just do the same Final Fantasy VIII? It's money at the end of the day, we'll win. Now, I've talked a lot about the graphics to begin with. I think it's probably time we set the stage. Set the stage of who our main players are. You play as Squall Leonhardt, a resident of the futuristic city called Gardens. They're in training to become a member of SEED, which is like the Gardens version of the military mercenary. He starts the game in bed after having his face slashed by Cypher, his rival/antagonist. We saw this in the opening video. Like, he's got a really cool scar in the game, that looks really good. But I kept thinking, imagine that in real life. Like, I've always thought I think that scar would look cool on me. But I know if I had a scar like that, like a slash across the face, it's gonna look like when Tyrion Lannister had one. It ain't gonna look good. I don't think you can get a scar that looks that pretty. It's just not happening. It's not. You're then visited by your teacher, Quistis. If I've pronounced this wrong, shout at me in the comments. This is how I pronounced it in my head. So, she's your teacher, and she's only 18. And you're 17. What? What? I don't think that's how education works, does it? Fine. She takes you to class after you've suffered this horrific face injury, and, you know, don't worry about it, it's fine, just jog on. And you start the tutorials. Oh my god, the tutorials. There are so many tutorials that you don't even fight your first battle for 25 minutes. The fuck? Who thought that was a good idea? Final Fantasy VII, you do it within 20 seconds. That's ridiculous. But as you realise, they probably need to, because there's so much going on in this game, you probably do need those tutorials. And let's get into these battles, shall we? Battles, once again, are 3 members of your team against the enemies. You can attack, use magic, item, and draw. Previously, magic was relied on MP. Well, not this time. Now you draw magic from your enemies, it's a cute idea, and you can draw points from across the world. As I said, it's a cute idea at first, but then you realise you're going to be drawing a lot. And I mean a lot. The draw system is actually the only way you can get certain summons, including Siren, Carbuncle, and Eden. If you miss these opportunities, you need to wait a long time to get the chance to get them again. And you'll find later that you need to be drawing 100 of each magic spell. I'll get into that why. I know it's going to be all over the place, this. So this has become a bit of a grind. There's also limited about how many spells you can actually have. So ultimately, you've got to keep the best spells while making sure you get rid of the rubbish ones. Now, let's talk about the next system, shall we? The GFs, the summons. So GF stands for Guardian Forces, and as always, they're one of the highlights of the game. After Final Fantasy VII put so much of an emphasis on the animation of summons, Final Fantasy VIII went one step further. Now, each character has the ability to quit GFs. They kind of go into their brain, I think that's how it's said, and they can use them in battle. At the beginning of the game, you're going to be using them a lot. Well, I did. I used them very heavily. And when you can summon them, and you can summon them as much as you want, it begins a cutscene. Now, this cutscene is not skippable. It's not a problem at the beginning, but it is later on when you try and summon Eden, and Eden's animation is over a minute. It's only 2 minutes long. It's outrageous, especially when you can do that every single turn. But the reason why they're not skippable is because if you press select, you actually get a little number counter. Start pressing square, and that number counter goes up. The higher the number goes, the more damage you're going to do. But when a little hand comes over and a little Xbox goes over it, you need to stop pressing square, because if you press square once when it's in full view, your number goes back down to its original value, which means its original attack. So ideally, you want to try and get the best score you can to do the most damage. Now in the game, there are 16 GFs. Some of them are fought, some of them are drawn, and some of them you can make with the recipe list. Apparently you can make a train. You can make a train through ingredients. I don't know how that works, but it does. It does. You can also get 7 GFs that come in randomly, or use an item. The item ones I wasn't sure about, but some of them will just pop in and come say hello. Bit of a pro tip, do not get Odin before Disc 4. Get him at Disc 4. He's a badass, and you're going to cry. We'll go into this later. I swear to God, do not get Odin before Disc 4. I warn you now. To talk about some of the GFs, you've got Ifrit, Shiva, Bahamut, who are kind of mainstays, but then you've got summons who make their only appearance, which you've got Quetzalcoatl, Doomtrain, and Cerberus. Some of them you get to fight, as I mentioned, Ifrit, the brothers, Diablo, Cerberus, and Bahamut. And these fights are tough, and 2 of them you don't even have to do, but then you're not going to get them, and you don't want that, do you? Because we're all completionists. Except we don't scam people for money. But yeah, we're completionists in the sense we want to get them all. Along with using a big attack, each GF has abilities which you can attach to your character, and these can be mastered through AP which you obtain in battle. These skills can be used in battle, such as Recover, Revive, Counter, or they give you stat boost, such as HP increase, Strength increase. You even gain the increased ability slot to eventually have 4 abilities, so you could have Recover, Revive, a HP increase, and a Strength increase. But also, because of the system, it means you can mix and match all these GF abilities, and this allows for so much expression in the game, which I think is great. Case in point, Zell was my healer. He had Recover and Revive, and it was all part of my strategy, which I'll get to later, but Zell was meant to be that little bruiser, but all he ever did in the game was heal people. He had no other objective apart from healing. It's ridiculous. And fighting the GFs was absolutely amazing thing to do, because I hadn't done that before. This is all brand new. And actually, it's part of the story. It's part of your seed test. And apparently, according to Quistis, it's your makeup test. So she takes you, as part of your makeup test, to a cave to go fight Ifrit in literal hell. First of all, who approved this test? And at the time when I was 17, I was doing my A-levels, not fighting fire demons. Where's his parents' permission slip? Oh. Oh, yeah. We'll get to that. And I think kids need to stop moaning about doing these school tests. Sitting in an exam room for 3 hours doing something on a bit of paper is less taxing than fighting a fire demon. Ridiculous. Also, what was the main test? Krista says that's your makeup test. What did you have to do for the main one? How many people died? It's ridiculous. Sometimes you have to look at health and safety and go, it's a bit much. Here, I'm kind of with it and go, maybe someone should have stepped in and gone, you know what? Probably not the safest thing to do. And I don't care if any of you think, well, it's a video game. Shut up. Shut up. But the other reason, and the main reason, that you want to have a GF equipped is the ability to junction magic. Okay, junctioning. Here we go. I'm absolutely dreading this. When you junction a GF to you, one of the 9 stats light up. So that could be your strength, your HP, your magic ability, etc. And then what you can do is you can junction magic to that stat. For example, add fire magic to your HP and it makes your HP go up. This is why you need to draw 100 of them, because the more magic you have there, the higher the stat. Some spells will do different stat growths depending on what it is. For example, the Cure spell does more for your HP growth than fire does. But this system also kind of has a bad side. Like, if I've got 100 cures and that's affecting my health, say, by 50%, and it's taking me to 4,000 health, if I use one cure, then my maximum HP goes down. So people got to the stage where they didn't want to use any magic because that's going to affect their stats. And I was one of them. But this system creates 2 things. One, a playthrough, as I've just mentioned, you're too scared to use magic. You just refuse and you'll just use attack and GFs for the whole game. Or 2, a way to break the game, and I mean break the game. The more GFs you have junction to you, the more of the stats light up where you can put magic to increase your stats. Some GFs actually gain the ability to light up a particular stats. It's a bit of trial and error, but your main objective is to try and get all 3 characters to have all 9 stats lit up, and then all just fill them with really strong magic, and then you've broken the game. Like, your stats become absolutely insane, and the game just becomes a breeze. The ability to break this game becomes so early. I think the developers did not expect you to break the game this early. Like, I think they expect you to break it, but not as early as you could, and I'll go into that. Along with increased stats, you also gain the ability to gain resistances, such as sleep. So you can add the sleep magic to your defense stat to give you a bit of resistance in case anyone tries to put you to sleep. However, the same can also be said if you put it to your attack, and then you can use it to put your enemies asleep. This method of using sleep to either your weapon or your defense gets taught to you early on in the training garden. Quistis warns you about the T-Rexor who needs to be put to sleep. Okay, I'll watch out for the T-Rexor. Oh my god, it's a fucking T-Rex! This is the beginning of the game! There's an actual Tyrannosaurus Rex walking around in a garden, just chilling out. Who the fuck approved this? It didn't work in Jurassic Park, as anyone here can just walk in, have a nice stroll in the forest, and bang, you're met by a T-Rex. And this thing has 10,000 HP, which is insane. Like, this is the problem. You put it to sleep, which is great, but then Quistis goes and whips it. Don't wake it up! If it's asleep, run away! You might as well do a Steve Irwin from South Park. I'll just stick my thumb up its butthole. You may as well just do that. Absolutely ridiculous. Well, the question is, why would you risk it? Well, there's 2 reasons. 1, just to be a badass, because you could say you beat a T-Rex straight away. But 2, for dino bones. Again, we'll get into that. After some time, you'll eventually learn about the ability to turn enemies into items and cards. No, not now. You can also turn items into magic, so dino bones can be turned into Quake, which is great for your vitality. There's a card of Zell which you can actually turn into the GF ability Strength plus 60. So at this point, everything's become a bit of a joke. But did the developers plan this to happen? I think they knew this was gonna happen. but maybe not to this extent. I think they did want the player just to have fun and enjoy the story, but maybe not to break the game this early. So I think this is kind of a second playthrough sort of thing. So the first time you play the story, you're trying to work out how to play it, learn the mechanics, but by the time you want to play it a second time, you know exactly what you're doing, you know how to break the game, and do it like a low-level run sort of thing. But it's your choice to do this. Like, this is with any game. You could do, if you want to try and break it, you can. You want an example? Look at Final Fantasy VII. So Final Fantasy II is often considered that one, where if you want to increase your strength, well, the more you actually use your sword or use a weapon, you increase your strength. The more you get hit, the more that your health increases. The more you use magic, the more your magic increases. Well, if you want to sit there for hours on end at the beginning of the game and just hit yourself and heal, hit yourself and heal, hit yourself and heal, well, you'll gain loads of strength and loads of HP and loads of magic. You could do that if you want and try and break the game, but that's your choice. If that's how you want to enjoy it, then crack on. I'm not going to tell you what's good or bad, just your preference. And Final Fantasy VIII is exactly the same preference here. Now, in most RPGs, if you have a problem, well, if you want to get over the hill, you just grind. That's how you do it. Everyone loves a good grind. Get to the exact level you want, you have the stats you need, and you'll beat the boss. Oh, wait. Not with Final Fantasy VIII. Yes, not with Final Fantasy VIII. This does not work because the enemies scale with your level. What the fuck? I can't remember this shit being in the guidebook. Did anybody get told this? Is it in there? Could somebody comment on that for me? Yeah, grinding doesn't help at all. No, you actually need to learn the junction system and do it really well. This is why you may see like level 1 runs of Final Fantasy VIII, and it can be done, because yes, the enemies just stay at level 1, and you have to rely on the junction system. So there's one last thing I want to talk about the junction system, and I actually mentioned this on the Retro Wars podcast episode 104. So the director of Final Fantasy VIII came out and said if they actually had the chance to remake Final Fantasy VIII, he said he'd want to look at the junction system. He came out and said, I think you may remember we had the junction system in Final Fantasy VIII. And the thing about that system was the enemies leveled up in line with what the player's level was. And obviously you had to then use the junction system and how you customize that to overcome the challenge there. And I think this was a very difficult system for some people to get into. Depending on player skills, sometimes they just didn't work out the best way of doing things. So I'd want to return to that and really rework the battle system on Final Fantasy VIII and make it something that the level of difficulty and approachability for some fans was a lot better balanced. So I think that's the thing I'd look at most if I was going to be remaking it. But what do you guys think? Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing? Personally, I don't want them to change it. I figured out how to do it, so when I did my second playthrough, it was like, woo, this is going to be great fun. But others, I can understand, were a bit hesitant about it and it might have scared them off. So maybe you should have the options for both. Leave both systems in and you can make that decision. Now, okay, that's out the way. Let's go into the characters. Now, unlike 7, we had a party of 9. You only have 6 here. And I was already like, boo, boo. Yes, I was one of those. It was early on. Guilty of more characters mean a better game. Then that's not necessarily the case, I know. So let's look at our main character, Squall. He is the main character, and honestly, everyone just calls him Moody. Like, I previously called him a crybaby in the Final Fantasy VII video, which had people up in arms. I know, in reality, he has a lot of attachment issues, having not been raised by his birth family, but we're going to get to that, don't worry. He really doesn't like to let other people in. He wants them out, he wants to stay by himself, but that's just his body's defences of protecting himself from further pain. See, whilst online personality me says he's just a baby, real life me knows a little bit about trauma. Squall's natural pathways are built to say there is no one there for you, so there's nobody around, and you're going to cry a lot. So to protect yourself, you just don't let others in to begin with. Sorts that problem out, doesn't it? Now, this can be retrained, but it takes a lot of repeated exposure for these new pathways to be made. This is why at the start of the story, Squall is quite hesitant to attach to anyone. He really doesn't give a shit. Especially to Rinoa, even though it's in his face. He just doesn't want anything to do with it. But as the story progresses and progresses, and he gets repeated experience that people want to be his friends and people want to love him, he starts to let his barriers break down because his body and mind are starting to realise they can be trusted. Then there is the leadership element. He is made the reluctant team leader of Seed, to the defunct leader of the group, to the leader of a garden, at the age of 17. 17. That is way too young for the level of leadership to be put on him. 17? Like, what was I doing at 17? Nothing good. Nothing I could probably mention on YouTube. Put it like that. He doesn't want it. He's a reluctant leader. And many people sometimes find themselves in this position. Like I have. Like, others look to you to lead, and you're like, I don't want to do it, but shit, if I don't do it, who the hell's going to do it? And then once you're in that position, well, it's up to you. Either you crumble or you rise. And in Squall's case, he rises again and again and again. And I point out once more, he is able to lead a city at the age of 17. 17, people. I wasn't even driving then. Now, Squall's weapon. It's a gun blade. It sounds like a cool idea. To have a gun and a sword, that sounds really cool. But oh my god, is the idea stupid in practice. Like, I don't understand how that works. Trying to fire the thing, surely it'd be like having a shotgun. Like, I did it. I held a shotgun in one hand for my stag do in Krakow, and oh my arm was shaking. So imagine what it's like trying to do a sword. Yeah, that's just asking for trouble, it really is. Now, Quistis is next, and I should say, if I butcher some of these names, that's my mind. Leave me alone. Shut up. You can correct me otherwise. She's your teacher. She's an older teacher with a whip. Hang on, what sort of game is this?
So, can I help you?
No, but maybe I can help you.
I need an adult.
I am an adult.
She's the one who introduces you to all the tutorials. Thanks. So she sends you to defeat a fire demon for homework, to go on your class field trip, to then fight a death spider robot. What the fuck? That makes... Oh my god, Quistis, why? No, you shouldn't be in charge of anybody. She is also the... No, stop it. Stop it. Down, boy, we'll get to that. Quistis comes across as a logical character, thinking of the smarter solutions. She realises during the story she actually does love Squall, but then comes to terms with it as it's actually more of a brotherly love than a romantic love. Our next character is Zell. See, Zell will react quite quickly because his buttons get pushed dramatically, and when your buttons get pushed and your mind flips, well, you're either going to act in three ways: fight, flight, or freeze. So for Zell, he acts with fight, and will literally try and kick the ass of anybody who winds him up, mainly Cypher. Now the problem is, he was a fighter, but he's never going to be as good as Tifa. I don't know what it is that makes Tifa better as a fighter than Zell. Honestly, I've been trying to think about these for years and years. I just can't think of the distinguishable factors that make it the thing with Tifa against Zell. I'm never going to work this out. Put it in the comments if you wonder why. Now, he loves hot dogs, but he always seems to miss the opportunity to have it, so it's a bit of a running joke, so I do like that. He calls himself Cypher's rival, even though Cypher doesn't really give a shit. Makes me laugh. His limit break, he can use button combos similar to a fighting game, and this also reminded me of Sabin in Final Fantasy VI. The funny thing was, in my playthrough, he was a white mage, which is weird, but that's just how the strategy dictated it. Yeah, it is weird, but yeah, shut up, he's my white mage. Selphine the Ninja Turtle is next, and she was met on the school class field trip. She's from another garden, and she's armed with nunchucks, although don't tell me the UK like that, because they didn't like nunchucks at the time, thanks Germany. That's all their fault. Ninja Turtles, Hero Turtles, all that shenanigans. She's very ditzy and also extremely light-hearted, but even in terrible situations, she'll always be positive. She also is able to fly the Ragnarok, which is the ship you get in the game. Oh, okay, she can just do that. I dropped her pretty quickly though. I like miserable characters and moody. Well, Zell's just hyperactive and Selphine is just far too nice. The next character, Rinoa, the heroine. Now, unlike Aerith in Final Fantasy VII, I like Rinoa. I did from the start. She doesn't take any of Squall's bullshit and is the leader of the Forest Owls. It's very clear from the beginning she has feelings for Squall and can see past his loner persona. She also likes to get kidnapped. Alright, are you basing yourself off Princess Peach? Obviously you are. And her limit breaks, she starts off using her dog as a cannon. Holy shit, she puts her dog on her arm and uses it as a fucking cannon. That is some animal abuse right there. Like, I put my own dog, Pat, I've tried it with him, look. It just doesn't work. However, later on with story stuff, she becomes broken. Like, the most broken character in Final Fantasy, or either JRPG history, or just gaming full stop. I will fight to the death over that. Okay, I could probably talk about my strategy now. It's probably the best thing, isn't it? So, as her limit breaks, she becomes a sorceress. Spoiler, but you know you're going to be getting spoilers here. And when it's her turn, she will use any magic in her inventory randomly, and also with increased damage, whilst not using any of the stock. Now, what I would do is put auto haste, protect, and all that palaver on her, and only junction one spell, Meteor. And then use the spell Meltdown by another character. Now, what this would do is make the enemy take more damage. I would then use the item Aura on Rinoa to get her limit break, and once it's ready, use Angel Wing, which is the name, and then go get a beer, because every few seconds she's going to be using Meteor, which at the time was doing 6k for each Meteor, and multiple landed. And then, really, the rest of it was just letting the rest of the team heal her. That's what Zell was for. Heal, heal, heal. It made even the final bosses wimps. She even bitched the weapons in the game, who we'll go into later. It is absolutely horrifying about how much damage she racks up so quickly. I thought I was being really unique because I came up with this by myself, but I found out online that, yeah, it wasn't a new strategy. I wasn't a god. Other people had done it. Shut up. I try my best. And it also should be noted that with the three characters, they were praised for not making them sexualized. Like, I wouldn't have any problem if they did, because, again, it's art, and that's what the artist wants, that's what the artist wants to do. But they kept all the three characters, the female characters' designs, modest, and fair enough. I'm okay with that. The final character is Irvine. He's a cocky cowboy, the ladies' man. Yeah, he's got a gun, so I hate him. I can't resonate with gun characters, I never have been. It's like with Vincent, I like Vincent, but the fact he's got a gun, I'm like, meh, no. His bravado, however, is all for show. I can't tell you much about him because I barely use him. He's bench material 101. This is my retrospective. Like, if you love him, you do your own thing on him. You make your own video about why I love Irvine. Well, I'm not going to do that because I don't love Irvine, alright? Now, you've got to have side characters as well. Side characters make a game. And there's going to be 4 we're going to talk about. The first one is Cypher. He's your rival, and sadly he doesn't get more of a role in the story, like I wish he does. He just wants to be centre stage and believes he's actually better than he is. He's loud, brash, but in reality lacks direction and purpose. Like, he just wishes to be the knight and will chase anything to do it, so if anyone gives him that potential chance to be my knight in shining armour, he'll take it. I love his design though, I think he's got a great design. He's just superb. And as well, he's got a similar scar to Squall because Squall slashed him as well as him slashing Squall. Then there's Headmaster Cid. Yes, this is from Final Fantasy VII Cid to this. And for the moment, I wanted to cry. He's in charge of the Baham Garden that you live in, and we're going to talk more about Cid as the story progresses. The big bad of the game, well, I use big bad in air quotes here, is the sorceress Edea. Right from the off, boom, she's the bad guy. You see it in the opening videos. And she has a great design. I think she oozes power and class and beauty. She comes across as strong, and battling her is just genuinely fun, and is really a character I don't want to mess with. And she's in some of the box art. I genuinely think she's a fantastic character, but I'll go into more spoiler territory shortly. Finally, there's Elena, a key character who you spot now and again through the story. I'm not going to say anything now, but yeah, she's pretty central to everything. She really is. I think she is the most important character in the whole game. You introduce to her early in the story, but you have no idea what she's even doing for quite a while. And as I've been talking about the plot, it's probably now time to talk about it. Now, I'm going to do a recap of this. Now, I never did this with 7, just because I felt 7 was just such a convoluted mess. But with Final Fantasy VIII, you've got to tell the whole story, you've got to go through the plot. So I'm not going to go for it bit by bit. There might be bits I miss out, so don't kill me. And again, if you want to do your own version of this, come at me, brah. Go for it. Seed have been recruited to help Timber gain their independence from the Galbadia Republic by stealing their president. Before that, all the group are knocked out. Oh god, this stuff. Yes, the dream sequences. What a way to confuse the player. You find yourself playing as Laguna, Ward, and Kiros, and it's interesting as you're playing the other side of this war. You realise you're playing in the past, and at first you're trying to work out, how the hell does this fit into the story? There's a bar scene between Laguna and Julia, who's a singer there, and you're like, what the fudge is going on? But their story evolves, and it's clear they have feelings for each other. But this is a tale about love that wasn't meant to be, as Laguna has an accident, so he's not able to be with Julia. It's probably for the best though, because Julia goes on to become Renoa's mum, and Laguna was saved by a lady called Rain after his accident. Their story evolves and the relationship grows. Now going back to the main story, the mission with the owls goes tits up, and after more stupidity, Cypher tries to storm the studio to take the Galbadian president hostage. That's a great plan. What did he think was gonna happen? He thought he was gonna be the king of all to do that. Sorceress Adia then turns up, saves the president and takes Cypher away. Yeah, so he's in trouble. Then the Galbadian Garden hire Squall and the gang to kill Adia. The gang are then joined by their final party member, Irvine, the sharpshooter. But actually when it comes to taking the shot, he panics, saying he's never actually done it before. But once he gets the balls to actually do it, she blocks the shot. Squall and his gang have to attack Adia head on, but Cypher is now her knight, and he loves this idea. After beating Cypher and taking on Adia, the plan fails and Squall has his shoulder pierced with an ice spear. Finally! All this time in Final Fantasy, I actually want to see some people get some proper damage dealt to them, and an ice spear to the shoulder is a way to do it, because everyone always seems to take all these magic attacks like they're absolutely nothing. A bit later on, the Galbadian Garden gets a little bit pissed off, and sends missiles to the Trabia Garden and the Baham Gardens. Now at this point, the team decide to split into two, and I really struggled at this section, and I had no idea how the game mechanics worked when it came to they level up with you, so I was in big trouble. I did do it, but it wasn't exactly fun. Squall goes back to Baham Garden, and this scene is awesome. Seeing the other garden coming in. Oh yeah, the gardens can fly. Should we just say this? How the hell, with the gardens flying, are people not just like being flinged around to their death? Sorry, back to the main thing. Squall ends up having a punch-out with a guy in a zip wire, which is quite funny, but as this is going on, you can see the other students from both the gardens fighting each other in the background. That's amazing. That's one of the best scenes in the whole game. But then, hang on, the Renoa bit. Okay, so Renoa at this point has got herself into all sorts of strife, and she's hanging on for dear life while Squall's trying to save her. But it should be added, she is hanging on there for absolutely ages. Like, how is she doing that? Don't come at me with video game logic. There's no way I could hang like that for so long. I don't even rock climbers can do that. After Squall saves her, the two run across the battlefield, and I love this scene because it's so brutal. There's an explosion there, people are using real spells, and at this point some guy gets whacked off a bike. Like, this would have been absolutely brutal in the sense of, these are kids who are trained to kill. So that it's gonna be a scene from like Battle Royale or the Hunger Games, whichever one you want to go with. But then the next scene, this really annoyed me a little bit. Renoa. She plays all flirty with Squall, and is like, ooh, yeah, I've got your ring. And hang on, go back a step. People have just been dying. I think Squall's probably really traumatized. You should be traumatized, but no, this is the time to have a little flirt. Now, you find out the ring is called Griever. We all know this is important for later on, but you get the chance to name it. So I want to hear in the comments, if you had the chance to name the ring again, or the GF Griever, what would you call it? The stupider, the better. At the end of this event, you actually find out that Headmaster Sid and Sorceress Adia are actually married. You find out the garden's true purpose is to fight Adia. The crew then go to Drabia, which has been absolutely wrecked. Salphine's devastated because all her friends are probably dead. But then we see the basketball court scene. Oh yes, this part of the game. Hold on, here we go. Irvine reveals everyone but Renoa used to live at an orphanage, and they were cared for by the Sorceress Adia. Even Cypher was there, but only he remembers it. Everyone has forgotten due to their use of GFs, except Irvine because he never used them. This revelation from Irvine flips the story completely. So they actually all know each other. Sorceress Adia cared for them all, and now they've got this memory loss. Well, that's pretty convenient. Now, it should be said, the garden staff do hint at this at the beginning of the game, like ignore the rumours, what GFs can do for you, there's nothing wrong with them, it's all good. The thing is, why do they all forget the same thing? Like, do the GFs have a little conference to themselves and go, right, let's all focus on the past, let's all focus on that orphanage image, that'll be fine. We'll just remove that from their mind, don't worry about any other thing, like their ability to walk or anything like that. No, just take away their childhood, and that's what we'll do. Yeah, a bit fishy to me. Also, it should be noted, Selphine rocks up and she's got no GFs. So what was she using? Why is her memory so bad? This game needs to explain things to me. The group decide to go after Sorceress Adia again, and this time they fight Cypher and Adia and win. But then Adia admits she is possessed by another sorceress called Ultimecia. She's a sorceress from the future who wants to go back in time to cast the time compression spell. Oh, for fuck's sake. So what? Adia wasn't the bad guy. And now we've got time bollocks. We already had time bollocks with the dreams, and now we've got even more time bollocks. Ultimecia apparently can't go back far enough, so she needs Alone's power. Oh yes, that girl who can send people back in time. Yeah. She can send people back in time, so she needs her power, because she can do it a little bit further. Oh yeah, and now Renoa's collapsed into a coma. This is great, isn't it? So Squall finds later on through usual JRPG madness that there's a hidden city which is connected to a moon base. Oh my god. We're going mental. The moon apparently holds another sorceress called Adele, who is sealed away, and Ultimecia is after her power. It's going to get worse. You then find out most of the planet's monsters came from the moon, which get transported through a process called the Lunar Cry. What the fuck has the plot become? Also, how do the monsters live on both? How do they live on the moon, and then how do they live on Earth? I don't think the physiology works that way, but we're going to ignore that. Squall then goes to save Renoa from inside the moon. So he's at the moon. We've gone to the moon. And then he saves her in a spacesuit because she's about to drift out into space and the oxygen's going to run out. Then the crew find there's a spaceship called the Ragnarok just floating around. And then Renoa becomes a sorceress. Like, what the fuck is going on? Like, at what point did the writers go, right, get the wacky backy out, let's watch some Star Trek, and we'll just see what happens? Like, everyone was just, like, blown away at this point. Like, what has this story become? And this is why I say you've got to explain the plot of Final Fantasy VIII, because it's just madness. It's just crazy. Squall decides to give Renoa up. He gets her back, because he loves her. Great, we've done that. Squall then meets the president of this hidden city, and it's Laguna. Laguna apparently took over Adele and sealed her away. Laguna then explains the past, where Alone went to Adia's orphanage with Rain's new baby after Rain passed away. I wonder who the baby could be. Laguna confesses he didn't know this happened or that Rain had a baby because he was off trying to sort out the Adele stuff. And after a conversation with Alone, she wants to send Squall back in time so she can change the past to keep her family together. It's all about family. Now, before we carry on a little bit more, do you remember I said do not get Odin on Disc 3 or before Disc 4? Well, the reason is that because on Disc 3 you have your final battle with Cypher. Odin appears because he wants to try and take out Cypher in one, and Cypher's just like, one hit KO. Like, what the fuck? He has literally just killed the GF in one. But Odin's blade is caught by a hand, and this becomes Gilgamesh. He's similar to Odin, but he's just not as good. Okay, ready for things to get nutty again? Elone then uses her power, and they end up deciding to send the whole crew to go fight Ultimecia into the future. Yeah, we're going into the future to Ultimecia's castle. After going through, which I think is an absolutely incredible final area, you get to Ultimecia. Oh my god, this boss. Now, she randomly picks 3 members of your crew to fight her, and they might not be your strongest, which is a bit of a pain in the arse. You need to KO them as quick as you can. After a bit, they're destroyed and lost to time, and then the other party member comes in. However, if you're trying to get Renoa in, and she's the last one in, it can be a bit tedious. And then the second phase of the fight. Ultimecia reads into Squall's mind to make the GF Griever come back to life. Imagine if you'd called the GF Griever Penis. I'm going to summon a penis. Just imagine it. And it comes up on the screen instead of Griever, penis. I know I'm immature, I don't care. Ultimecia's third form is where she merges with the penis, I mean Griever, and you fight her once more. Once you beat her again, she becomes her ultimate form, and you're fighting through time and space, and to be honest, it actually looks pretty cool because there's so much going on in the background. Once this is done and she's beaten, it's time for the ending. Everyone attempts to get back to their own timeline. Squall and Ultimecia actually go back to the orphanage when Squall was a child, and you witness Ultimecia pass her powers to Adia. Now before that happens, Squall tells Adia about the garden and seeds. He's actually setting up his own destiny. Like, it's a weird time loop sort of thing. Well, it is for Ultimecia. And it turns out that Cid and Adia planned everything. Squall's destiny, the orphans being trained, everything. And this is why Squall has to become the big boss. Cid probably didn't want to put a 17-year-old in charge of the garden, but he knows it has to happen, because if it doesn't happen, it's not going to fulfill what happens later on. That is some big mindfuckery right there. Like, imagine if Cid had spilled it all in the first few minutes of the game. That would have been hilarious. So, these are the GFs. Also, there's going to be a sorceress, and there's time travel stuff, and you're going to be the king. And yeah, don't worry about all this. It's going to happen. Destiny. Squall's mind would just go and just explode. Squall attempts to go back to his normal time, and he starts to get to the point when he can't remember Renoa. Renoa is able to turn a flower petal into a feather because she's a sorceress to go find him. However, he does find it, but he's too weak. She ends up bringing him back though, and then it's the ending. All of it's all wrapped up. Adia is back to normal, Zell is... oh, I love Zell. And it ends with Renoa and Squall sharing a kiss. And that's it. What an adventure. If you'd guessed that was going to be the story from the start, you'd be lying. You'd be absolutely lying. Like, I don't mind the story, but I know a lot of people dislike it. Like, it's not one of the most straightforward plots, but it's a JRPG. Like, what is standard? Let's be honest. They're always crazy, we always know that. Now, aside from all the time travel and space stuff, this is actually a story about love. The love Squall has for Renoa, and how Squall has to learn to let people in and then fight for it. For Cid and Adia, knowing that you have to create a mercenary group with the kids you've raised to kill your wife. A love dashed by circumstances. For Laguna and Rain, where circumstances produces love. For Elone, the love of family and wanting them to be back together. For Quistis, who realises her love for Squall is more like a big sister. And for Zell, hot dogs. Now, I talked about the trauma Squall went through earlier, but I believe there's more to it. Now, this actually applies to all those in the orphanage who forgot their past. Now, one of the things I do is when I train people in real life, I take you as a person. Now, real life me talks to people about attachment and trauma, and we're going to use this as a bit of an example. I want to think about you as a person, alright? Think about your name, your family, your culture, your history, your time as a child, your religion. How did you get to this? How did you have these experiences? Now, most of you can answer those questions, and if you can't, you can ask the loved ones you have or your friends for your answers. and this makes up your identity. But what if you didn't know any of those answers? Or in most cases, you can't remember your past, and you can't actually go find out. Like, who gave you your name? Who's your family? Who raised you? It leaves you with so many unanswered questions, and you may never really know who you truly are. Like, I joked in the Final Fantasy VII video that Squall's a big baby, but real life me knows that's not true before the internet starts going after me. Cloud did go through his own set of trauma, but he was a bit different. Like, he couldn't remember his past, but his trauma was different to Squall and the rest of the group because he was tested on, there was multiple personalities conflicting with each other. Like, I actually think the writers did a good job on Squall's character throughout the game, and I really hope that its meaning is not forgotten. Now, let's get the serious stuff out the way and have some fun, shall we? Now, money. We're going straight to the money. Normally, you get money by defeating your enemies. And it's always made no sense to me, like, how do animals have money? Even less sense in Final Fantasy VIII's case, as the enemies come from the moon. Like, how are they gonna have money? So this time, we're getting a salary based on our rank, and you get paid in increments. This rank can go up or down depending on how you do in battle. Or you can do the tests and go straight to the top rank. Shut up, I had a guide and I'm using it. Shut up. Shut up. It was an interesting way of doing it, and it makes sense for the world that you're in. Like, I'm in a job. I'm doing a job. That's how it works. Now let's look at some of the side quests. Every game has them. They can extend the game and give you potentially good rewards and weapons, etc. And I'm going to cover just a few of them. Well, first, there's a UFO, because of course there is. Like, we're doing time travel, space, like, what's a UFO? We just add that into the mix, shall we? Then there's the Deep Sea Research Center. I love this place. It's hidden on a tiny little island. You rock up and a voice says, "Do one." That's Bahamut. Okay, you've got to fight him, and I'm fighting it. It's like, this is so much fun. After beating Bahamut, you venture down and you fight Ultimate Weapon, one of the super bosses, and be prepared. If you want to get the final GF, you've got to fight it. It looks scary as anything, and as if you've noticed, it's got Cloud's ultimate weapon. The thing is, this isn't even the game's biggest threat. No, that's the final super boss, Omega Weapon. This is accessed by ringing a bell in Ultimecia's castle, running back to the church hall, and Omega Weapon is just standing there in the church. Holy fudge. To say how powerful it is, now this is off the Wikipedia. Ultimate Weapon, at level 65, has 278,900 health. However, Omega Weapon, at level 60, has 725,000 HP. So nearly 3 times as much and 5 levels down. Yeah, this is gonna be a monster. It also has level 5 death, which is fun. So if you've got multiples of 5 in your team, your levels, you're in trouble. It has a move called Light Pillar, which does 9999, which is instant death to one of your characters. It has a gravity move, which can do 75% of the whole team's HP. And finally, it's got a move called Terror Break, which deals out 16 hits, doing 4,000 damage each. So how do you beat this thing? Well, you use my strategy I mentioned earlier with Renoa and the Sorceress, and you go have a cup of tea. And also Mega Elixirs, and also Heroes. But when you're asking how did I get these things, just wait, we'll get onto that. And I did beat this thing, and it was great, because it's like, I finally done it, I finished Final Fantasy VIII, and it's like the challenge is over, it's all completely done. Now, one of the things that really annoyed me a little bit is when you get to Disc 4, all the town cities are walled off. Now, this could be various reasons, which people could confirm, maybe it's something to do with disk space, but story-wise, it's protecting the town from the time compression, because we can do that, we've got the technology to protect towns from... Shut up, it's just ridiculous. Okay, weapons. Remember I mentioned that earlier about the Gunblade and how it's absolutely stupid? Well, let's just go a little bit into that. Normally, you pick up and buy weapon upgrades, and you dump the previous one. That's not how it works in Final Fantasy VIII. Like, everyone loves their weapons so much, you never bin it, you just upgrade it. Yes, you upgrade it with items that you find, and you get the recipes through catalogs. You end up getting your items from enemies or from cards. No, stop that. We're not ready yet. Calm down. In fact, you can actually get Squall's best weapon by the first disc. Again, I don't think they were planning for that to happen, but you can. Like, I do think the Gunblade is stupid, but I do think Squall's ultimate weapon, the Lionheart, is beautiful. Stupid can be beautiful. And to tell you what's not stupid, the music. Like, I was never missing this. I told you before, when I saw that first FMV hit, my jaw hit the ground. And when the music came in, I was just, this is incredible. And I got chills. Actual chills. Nobumetsu did an amazing job once again, and the battle music's incredible, and Fisherman's Horizon is still one of my favourite songs to date. Like, seriously, listen to the Distant Worlds version of Fisherman's Horizon, it's just brilliant. Final Fantasy VIII also had the first 2 tracks with vocals on them, being Eyes on Me and Liberati Fatali, and the soundtrack is absolutely ace. So let me know in the comments what was your favourite song from the soundtrack. Okay, are you ready now? Let's talk about Triple Triad. Or you're all happy now, aren't you? Now, Final Fantasy VII had so many minigames, but Final Fantasy VIII just said, nope, we just want one. And they made a card game which anyone can play, like the whole bloody world knows it. Just press square and at any time you can fight someone for a duel. Even when the world is in terror, even when Renoa's gonna die. Wanna play cards? It's just awesome. Like, imagine it was a real war. World War I, World War II. Like, the British and the Germans are fighting each other. Hang on! Wanna play cards? It'd be awesome. Now, the game is played on a 3x3 grid. You each have 5 cards each. And the person who goes first is determined at the beginning by a flip of a coin, and depending on who goes first, it actually can change your strategy. Each card has 4 numbers from 1 to A, with A counting as 10. Each number represents a side of a card, either the top, right, bottom, or left. When a card is played next to the cards of an opposing colour, their values on the side of the cards that touch are compared, and whichever ends up being lower gets flipped. Once the game is over, the victor will usually win 1 or more cards from their opponents. That's a basic way of explaining how this works. And as I said, when you win, you get the chance to take a card. But if you lose, they're going to take your best card, so be prepared. The game's difficulty amps up though whenever you go to new areas because you learn new rules. This could be Elemental, where you start adding Pokemon-esque mechanics. It could be Plus, where some things have like a +2 onto it. It could be Same. There are so many different rules that I'm not going to go into it. However, these rules can be daunting, and they stack on top of each other. But for me, this is great, because I love maths, and I love strategy. Like, you can abolish all these rules, but I just can't remember how to do it. There's a lot of cards you can collect around the world. Summons, bosses, even the main characters are cards, but you really gotta hunt to find them. Well, why are the cards so important? Yes, I've been hinting this for a while. Well, you get an ability to turn cards into items, and this is massive. And the reason why this is so important is that some of these items can be used for battles, or parts from your weapons, even abilities for GFs. Now, I did mention that I had 100 Mega Elixirs for the Omega Weapon battle. That's because I got rid of the Bahamut card. And Laguna's card can be transformed into 100 heroes. And Hero, one of them, makes you invincible. You goddamn need invincibility when you face a Mega Weapon. There's actually a quest you can play when you face a card group. Now, these are some of the best players that Garden has. You hunt round and battle them until eventually you get challenged by the Master, who is the King. And this is Quistis. Like, whoa, hang on. You've got high-level cards in your hand. We could use them right now to save the world, you stuck-up bitch. Ridiculous. Also, side note, the Triple Triad music absolutely slaps. It always reminds me of the scene in Family Guy where Brian was at an award show for certain activities and they were discussing the best music. Imagine if you were using the Triple Triad music. Like, it'd give you a good rhythm. Think about it, fellas. Think about it, ladies. It's got a rhythm to it. After the game's release, it came out to big success. It got positive reviews. Outlets complimented its graphics, its cutscenes, and the musics were standouts. However, the plot and the drawing system were criticised. And by August 2019, the game had sold 9.6 million copies on all platforms. The Final Fantasy VIII crew, well, some of them have appeared again in the Kingdom Hearts series, that being Squall, Selphine, Cypher, Fujin and Rajin. There's also the Dissidia games, and Squall and Ultimecia appear on them, and Laguna comes in much later on. And no, I'm not discussing the mobile version. The game got a complete remaster recently, which adds a fast forward option. All RPGs should have a fast forward option. Do I think in the future we're gonna get like a Final Fantasy VII remake treatment? No, I don't think we ever will. I think it's more likely going to be Final Fantasy VI or Final Fantasy IX. And the final thing I want to talk about is the legacy. Like, its legacy isn't positive. And its reason is probably because there's Final Fantasy VII. Like, how'd you top that? Final Fantasy VII was considered one of the most influential, if not one of the best games of all time. So it always meant that Final Fantasy VIII always started with a huge handicap that other games didn't have. You want a comparison? Look at Ocarina of Time Majora's Mask. See? Same thing. The plot twist often also gets mocked, as does the edgelord that is Squall. But as we've said, this isn't fair. And the draw system, yeah, I think you just need to understand it and practice with it, and eventually it all kind of makes sense. Most people point to Triple Triad being the best thing, which is kind of true, but that shouldn't be the only thing we talk about. It also didn't help that Final Fantasy IX came out strong, and it would have had the opposite start that Final Fantasy VIII did. So Final Fantasy VIII has always been seen as the black sheep of the PS1 era. However, as discussed, this game does have a lot of positives, even if it has taken me, and I'll be honest, a long time to get here. Is it my favourite? No. Should you play it? Absolutely. Is Squall a crybaby? No, he isn't. Final Fantasy VIII is a beautiful yet messy experience where the team tried something different. But at the same time, I have to thank them. It's a game I'm never going to forget, it's a game with many layers, and it's a game that everybody should experience at least one time in their life. And as I just mentioned, I don't think we're going to get the remake treatment, so if you want to play this game, go and play the remastered version, and I swear you'll be in for a good time. And that's it! That's the end of my retrospective on Final Fantasy VIII. If you have enjoyed this, thank you very much, and please leave a like and a comment, it really helps with the YouTube algorithm. And to also let you know, if you want more of Retro Wars, we do a podcast where every week me and a friend will talk about the video games we used to play back when we were kids. Until then, I hope you all have a lovely day, and I'll be back again with another video soon. Take care of yourselves, bye bye.